2007, The Stone Angel. Some thoughts on this review. It's directed by Carrie Scotland, who's also responsible for the screenplay based on a novel by Margaret Lawrence. The cast in the lead role is Ellen Burstyn, who plays Hagar. Dylan Baker plays Marvin, Hagar's son, and his wife, Sheila McCarthy, plays the character Doris. This is the early frames show Marvin and Doris driving on a freeway, on a highway rather, and they come close in vicinity to the Silver Elms residential home. They haven't told Hagar, Marvin's mother, what their plan is, but Silver Elms is a residential facility for the elderly. Hagar is now into her 80s, and Doris has decided that she can no longer provide 24-hour care for her mother-in-law, and her son, Doris's husband, Marvin, is going along with it, but they've tried to keep it a secret until now. The film then traces the life of Hagar. We see her as a young child in play with other children, and interestingly, I'm not sure about this, but we catch them playing near a funeral home, and they enter through an open window and are sort of surveying a corpse that's laid out when a noise is caused by one of the children, and there are 5 children in all, and they then make a quick run for it. We also see Hagar as a young woman, and I'm just trying to find her, and she is seen developing a relationship with a man who I believe is young Telford, one of the children we saw earlier. And so let's consider what we've got. Hester's stubbornness is conveyed succinctly when she basically tells the warden at the home that she's only on a visit, and a doctor who's exploring tests on her bowel problem, and then a preacher comes to the house and she utters in contempt the fact that she doesn't believe in the Lord, and she is not going to go to the Silver Elms home, and that she has to be carried out in a box. The movie is conveying already the really sad scenario that appears in the life of so many, particularly in the West, for those who have some money, and that is that they farm their elderly parents out to these homes so that they can sort of feel better themselves, but ultimately they're actually they're actually wanting to avoid the responsibility of caring for their parents in the last years of their lives, and they prefer to pay for somebody else to do it so that they can continue their sort of selfish style of life. It's humbling, to say the least. We witness a brief sort of attempt on passion between Hester as a young woman and the young man. Also, in the funeral home, it has to be said, which clearly was a business run by the young man's family. So he then switched back to the here and now, and her son informs her that his own business is struggling and he's filing for bankruptcy. And a sign of sort of reflectiveness, really, with regard to life's struggles. We catch Hagar as a young woman when she starts to get on well with Bram, who's got a sort of half-breed ranch. What that means is that his father bought the land off the native Indian for a pittance, and now he's feeling a guilt conscience, and has communicated to the native Indian that they can use this as a place to stay if the reservation becomes untenable. That's why it's called a half-breed ranch, because the native Indian were deemed half-breed, very derogatory, but it gives you a taste of the sort of racism around at that time. As time progresses, Bram and Hagar marry. There's opportunities for some fairly graphic sex, particularly in a pool by the side of a road where they're frolicking naked. Also, when Bram gets horny in the stables whilst they are grooming the horse. We also touch on Matt, the brother, dying, and then we catch a glimpse of Hagar giving birth to their first child. All part and parcel of life's ups and downs, highs and lows, joys and sadness. It's very well put together. However, when it comes to the acting, the here and now with Ellen Burstyn is definitely the highlight. She's an absolute superb example of character acting. Young Marvin is added to the family. There's an incident a little later where he's near one of the horses and his mother gets very protective, and the boy shares a conversation that he overheard between his father and a policeman. The policeman giving him a warning. Hessa looks into it and finds out that he took a piss outside his father-in-law's store. It was dark, no one around, but nevertheless he was spotted by a policeman and reprimanded and fined, and this provokes conflict between the two with regard to change. They both appear to want each other to change. A recipe for disaster in a marriage, of course. More life's tragedies. Jason Curry, Hagar's father, dies, and to cause further consternation, he doesn't leave a dime to either his wife or his family, thus upsetting plans that Hagar may have had for her kids to go to college. She does become pregnant, and outside the store in the town, she comes across a garden full of begonias that are being laid just for effect and part of business, and she loses it and stamps her feet wildly on the begonias as a sign of her anger at her deceased father. Her son Marvin stands in almost disbelief as he sees his mother, go off on this tangent. Bram, however, feels that they can do without the money. Hegger thinks otherwise. As we proceed through Hegger's life, it's now moved on to Marvin going away, cadet training to Cyprus for a year, an emotional goodbye, and then a family heirloom, a curry loom that's given to the younger son, John. And then they proceed into town, mother and John, and she gives him a little bit of a pep talk about being proud of his heritage, the fact that the town that they're walking through, the main street, was basically built really around his great-grandfather, the Curry family. And a couple of more scenes. Elga with a girlfriend of John, that she's quite committed to the idea of marrying him. Hegger tries to put her off, saying she's a little bit, he's a little bit like his father, a bit of a alky. The girl is convinced that his drinking is moderate, less so than his father. We then move to a scene where Elga witnesses the last breaths of Bram, and poignantly she closes his eyes. A complication, John's passion and love for Arlene, I think, but his mother makes him aware that Arlene is in fact his cousin, because Arlene's mother, Lottie, is the illegitimate daughter of Hegger's father. No, there we are. Incestuous, isn't it? The news about being a cousin certainly goes down the wrong way. John and Arlene decide late at night on a suicide type fact, where they get in their ute and drive down the rail track with a train fast approaching. There's a collision, of course, and then we are in the hospital, and Hegger catches John's final words and breath with Arlene in the adjoining cubicle. It's all rather tragic, but it sort of reminded one, I guess, of the scenes in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. To the Stone Angel then, the family plot in the graveyard, and we see the list of those buried beneath, as another one is added. John Shipley now to Bram Shipley to Curry, Jason Curry. It's a predictable list, but it's quite, well, hauntingly sad.